What would change in the world if you, me, and everyone choose to feed the wolf of possibilities instead of the one of doubt, distrust, and despair? The way I see it, our point of view creates reality, not the other way around. Somewhere deep within, I think we know that. In this podcast, I am daring you to claim this remarkable superpower. Join us and be inspired by trackers, explorers, and finders of possibilities from the multiverse of hope. Welcome to the podcast, Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities, with your host, Katarina Valentin.
So welcome to this episode of Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities. And my guest today is Diva Diaz, a global speaker, children's book author, facilitator of consciousness, and a phenomenal entrepreneur. And Diva navigates the world in a very different way, and she has since she was a kid. And it can be hard to explain the true possibilities of that difference, since the starting point for different is so different. So sometimes it's easier to show by using a real life story. And today we will chat about what happened when Diva fell down the stairs and broke her back. So welcome, Diva.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And you are in Australia at the moment, correct?
I am indeed, yes.
And it was just when you came there that you accidentally fell down the stairs. So could you just, I know we're diving right in here, but could you just tell us a little bit what happened? Like the logistics of the whole thing.
Yeah. It was actually a very interesting moment. I'd been driving home from a lunch with some friends, and then I had 1 hour before I was going to get on to finish facilitating this course that I was facilitating online. And I thought, 1 hour is plenty of time. I'm going to go with Simon, my husband, to go and pick up this moped that he was going to pick up. And as I walked down the stairs, I slipped when I reached the bottom of the stairs, and I fell backwards onto the edge of the steps, which fractured my back in 2 places.
Wow. So what did you think at that moment? Like, shit, fuck, no. But what does one think when one falls down the stairs?
Oh, let me tell you, it was like slow motion. It was the strangest thing. And the interesting thing was that as, he'd been looking for a moped for a while because he likes to go surfing, and he wanted to, have the freedom to like take his surfboard around and have to find parking and stuff. So as I was driving home from this lunch, I kept seeing, call it gut feeling or intuition or whatever. I kept kind of seeing him have this big motorbike accident, this moped accident, and not being okay. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Maybe I'm just, worried or something. And so when he said to me, do you want to come and pick it up? I was like, sure, I'll go and I'll just, kind of check that it's all okay. And I'll go with him and just, see what vibe I get from the whole thing. And anyway, as I fell down the stairs, it was very strange because I had actually reached the bottom of the stairs. So I didn't fall down the stairs. I slipped on the tiles at the bottom of the stairs. And as I fell in slow motion, it was almost like I could see all of that future possibility of him having the accident just disappear, almost like a film, like in my mind. It was really interesting. And it felt like I was falling for about 20 seconds, which of course it was not that long. It was like half a second. But the moment that my back hit the stairs, I knew it was not good news.
So what do you do when you there you are, and I think we often do, we know, okay, something actually is off here. Like, this is not just me falling. We know in that second that something is not correct with our bodies. How did you react to that? Or what did you do?
Honestly, I just went into action of handling all the things that would make the next steps easy. So when Simon heard me scream in pain, he came. So I immediately said, call an ambulance. Then the next thing I did was I texted my team and I said, I can't do class in 1 hour. I've severely hurt myself. Please do whatever is required. And then I allowed myself to be in pain. But it's one of those things where it's so intense that you have to be so present. And so, using the tools of access consciousness of just what do I choose in these next 2 seconds? And what do I choose now? And what do I choose now? And all I could do was sit very still, because any micro movement that I made was excruciating. So I had to also work very hard to not pass out, because I knew that passing out would hurt my body further.
It's also a great example of how we are capable of dealing with like emergency situations without going into fear. Because you would think that you would get so afraid by this hurting so much and your body being damaged that you would have gone to fear, and instead you went into action.
Yeah, definitely. And I also went into instantly going into the question of what was required. And the moment that I managed to get into the ambulance, because Simon had to help the paramedic carry me in, I instantly said to Simon, do exactly as I say. Don't try and get creative with this. Call my best friend and tell her to go and get me the best health insurance she can get this very second. No space for creativity. Do exactly this right now, please. And so it was just like thinking of what's next, because I was in a new country and just so many things. So it was just about handling what was going to create ease for my body and for my family and for everybody involved.
It is interesting because you are having your own back in that moment.
Yeah, it's true.
Which also then can relax your body because you're having your own back. So when you get to the hospital and you are being x-rayed, I guess, then all of that. So I know you function very different with questions, as you already mentioned. So how did you manage to stay in the question in that environment of diagnosis and, also information that we do get when we get to a hospital?
Yeah. Well, it was very clear to me that the information that I had about my body was far superior than the information that anybody else had. And they actually refused to x-ray me for the first 24 hours. They said that I didn't have a fracture because the bruising was in the wrong place. And I told them that I actually did. And after 24 hours, a different nurse showed up who actually listened to me and got them to x-ray me. And the interesting thing with that was that it really works the muscle of self-trust, knowing that if you get an inkling of something, and even though it's not happy news, but there's a lightness to it, that thing is true. And that's what I kept being aware of. And so I realize now that that's actually an immense honoring of yourself too, in those moments to go, no, I'm sorry, I don't believe what you're saying. This is actually what's going on, and not listen to the authorities or people that we've decided know more than us, and actually kind of stick to your guns and stay in the question of, okay, so what is going on? Who do I need to speak with? What do I need to do now? Like, body, what position do you need to be in to have some kind of ease? Do you need all of these drugs that they're giving you? Just with absolutely everything.
I really like that example of how if there is a lightness to any of the things that there is something that's true there, even though it seems like that would be a bad and wrong thing. And for so many of us, I think that we try to avoid that worst case scenario. So we don't even want to go there. We don't even want to know that. So we keep like going optimistic. So can you talk about the difference of being positive minded and optimistic and being in the question?
Yeah, definitely. Well, to me, like what I've seen a lot with optimism is very often when we've decided that there's something bad that we need to somehow fix or cover up with the optimism. And at this stage, I didn't have the luxury of that much mental capacity because I was in so much pain. So it actually forced me to just really be very frank and honest with what was, because it's like at a certain point, I couldn't feel certain organs. And there's no amount of optimism that's going to change that. And if the doctors aren't listening to you, you've just got to stick to like, hey, dude, this is what's going on. Like, I need somebody who can figure out what's going on here. And it was interesting because when they did come in to give me the diagnosis, the doctor that came in very casually, and she kind of lay over the side table with her arm up, like laid her head into her hand as though as soon as she did that, I went, she's overacting about how casual this is. This is going to be bad news. Now, I could have thought that's me being negative, but I knew by this point that most of what was happening was I was having this acute awareness of everything that was going on. Like there was no doubting my gut feeling, because that's all that I had to go by, really. And then that's when she was like, oh, by the way, yeah, so there's 2 fractures, like very kind of like nonchalantly, like, hey girl, I like your lipstick, like, hey, you got 2 fractures. And I almost said to her, like, why are you acting like this? Is very strange. Like, but I think that was her way too of being like positive and not freaking me out.
So that's my question. So did you freak out?
I did for a moment. Well, I have to say it wasn't a very long-lived freak out. It was a freak out that lasted approximately 15 minutes. And it was just like, oh, damn, what I knew to be true is actually true. I really didn't want it to be true, but there it is. And I guess it was also a release from my body of just crying in that moment, even though I've been crying from pain the whole time. But, a different kind of like, all right, fine, now we've got this. So now what's next? So the freak out was there, but it wasn't. I also, again, didn't really have the luxury of holding on to that for very long, because I had to take action to start healing.
So what was their suggestion of how to heal, and what action did you take to heal?
The hospital suggestion was that I should be up and walking immediately, which I physically couldn't do. So I again had to tell them actually quite sternly, like, I don't think you understand that I cannot. This is not me acting. I know my body very well. I cannot do it. And then that's when they started to really get like the gravity of what was going on. And then at other points, their advice to me was sit up in a chair. You need to sit up as much as possible. I tried to do that a little bit, but every time I went to, my body was like, don't do that. And then the times that I did, it would feel very painful afterwards for about a day or 2. I'd be like completely immobile. What I later discovered is the 2 vertebrae that I fractured are the ones that hold you up when you sit up. So of course, sitting up was the worst thing to do. So there were many pieces of advice that I got from the doctors that were entirely the opposite of what would create the healing. So in noticing those nuances, I'd have to say, like, really be willing to like stand alone in my awareness in the face of a whole hospital filled with different doctors, different nurses on every night shift, morning shift, telling me things that I knew weren't entirely correct.
So I would say that when you describe really the whole process from finding yourself at the bottom of the stairs and to where we are now, it's stepping into fully being your own healer. Like getting the information, but also, okay, so what's true for me, what's not true for me, and what's true for my body, and what's not true for my body. If you looked at that, what would you say was your greatest resource or tool that you used during this time? A lot of us come to the hospital with different kinds of things going on with our body, and we get different kinds of information from different people. And if we are our own healers, that information can be very useful, and it takes us to still, know what we know, like you're saying. So what would you say was the best tool that you used?
I would say really to, in that moment, was to go inwards. And I don't mean contracting, like retreating into a shell. I mean going inwards into me having a very like raw conversation with my body and not looking outside of me for any answers or information, and really asking questions the whole time, like, okay, body, can we do this movement? Okay, body, what's required now? Shall I put my hand here? And just trusting that whatever I did, even if it seemed crazy, was actually the best thing. Like for the first 4 days, I was propping up my back with my own hand in a certain position. And, my arm was very tired from it, but it just seemed like to be the only thing that gave me relief. And then afterwards, I discovered too that what I was doing there was elongating the spine so that I could have more space and not be kind of pressing down on the vertebrae. So there were certain things that my body was naturally doing that if I'd listened to anybody else would have just created something different. So it really forced me to actually go, okay, I do know something my body does know. And the way to access that knowing is to get quiet internally, listen and ask questions, and actually listen to the energetic answer and honor that. Not, I don't have the time or the luxury for doubt.
So you were practicing body whispering.
I guess. Yeah.
Which is, yeah,
Yeah.
I never thought of that before, but that like going inwards and really having a very honest and honoring conversation with your body.
Well, I was just going to say, and being aware of the subtleties of everything, the subtleties, even on like a cellular level that we so often just overlook, but are very definitely there. Like all of those things became louder because I was looking for that. I was looking for the information. And in that, it gave me a huge amount of gratitude for my body and what it could overcome and what it could do. That the fear of what wasn't possible started to diminish in comparison to this huge amount of gratitude and possibility that expanded and grew every time I did ask my body more and more questions and listen to it.
That's beautiful. I know you had a lot of body work done from Access Consciousness and other body workers as well. So with all of that, how long did it take till you were healed and could walk again?
4 weeks.
So a month. That
Yeah.
sounds really fast.
It is, yes. According to most people, I should still now, probably 5 or 6 months later, be hobbling around. And it did take a while. There were like some ups and downs as I learned what I was capable of. But yeah, I was off the walking frame at 4 weeks and starting to be able to hold my body upright and move and things and walk.
So, we talk a lot about that question was right about this that I'm not getting yet. So what would you say, or maybe there'd be several things, but what would you say was right about this that you may not have been able to see it at the moment when it happened?
I'd say that it was incredibly empowering in knowing that our choices, not just the action that we take, but what we choose to have go on in our own like mental space creates so much of what actually shows up. And it also forced me to receive in a way that I had never been willing to receive before. Receive information, receive my own awareness, receive trust in me, receive bad news and know that I could handle it, receive doubt and still go beyond it, receive contribution from so many people that contributed in ways that I didn't even know was possible. And I probably could never have received if I wasn't forced to be lying down and immobile. So it was a huge gift in receiving and in gratitude and in choice.
What has it changed for you with your relationship with your body today?
I am in absolute awe of it in a way that I have never been before. And I'm also really kind of in awe of myself, and what I was able to choose and create there, because a lot of also the work that I did to heal the body was also really looking at the psychological points of view that I had that could be limiting my progress or actually contributing to it. And it was a combination of like me and my body working together, which was an incredible thing, really.
I wanted to end by asking you how you would tell a kid how they could start communicating with their body and helping their body to help them heal.
I love this question. I would say, first of all, just take a moment to be kind of silent in your mind and just connect with your body. And then know that when you ask your body questions, it may not come up as a cognitive sentence or a very clear information in the way that we're used to receiving information, but it will be kind of like an intuitive knowing that you have of what's being communicated. And then just choose to follow that for 10 seconds only and see what happens. And then you're going to start knowing very quickly if you're heading in the right direction or in somewhere that's just completely off, because your body will very clearly tell you. But it's a great, it's a great way to really tap into your intuition that can then contribute to so many areas of your life.
So like listen to their gut sense.
Yeah.
Which is their body.
Exactly.
Which is located in their body. Yeah. Thank you so much for kind of walking us down this path of falling down and then getting up again and walking. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that as I kind of recall the last months and how it's been. And there have been ups and downs, of course, like with anything. But what has become very apparent to me is that everything that was superfluous in my life that I was putting a lot of attention on disappeared in the moments that I was actually willing to be totally present with my body and with those 10 seconds of time where nothing else was relevant, just what was required in the moment. And it became so clear to me how much we place attention on things that are just not relevant, rather than really actually being present with the things that we can change and we can contribute to, that then are like an explosion in our lives, rather than focusing on so many tiny things that are just, like I said, just not relevant at all. So that was a huge gift.
Thank you. I love that. If people would like to get in contact with you and maybe hear more about your children's book and the work you do with X-Men as well, how do they find you?
They can go to my website, which is divadiaz.com, and they will find everything there.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Kat.
And continue to enjoy your body.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities. I hope you have more space in your world now. If you would like to listen to earlier episodes, share with other people, or subscribe, please go to Spotify, iTunes, or visit katarinavalentin.com/wolf.